Welcome into the Commanders Report live show. I am your host, Jack Sperry. It's been a little while since we have been live on this channel, almost a month, and we haven't been live on this channel since before NFL free agency. The team looks a bit different now, so let's talk about it on today's program. If you guys want to get today's show started by shouting out your city down there in the comment section, we're going to give some shout outs here in just 1 second, but we bring on our producer for today, Mr. Joey Petersen. Joey, it's been a while since we've been on this channel, but it's good to be back.
It has, man. It's been a real long time. Things look a lot different than the last time we were live, but different in a good way. I know you're going to go into it a little bit, but obviously you brought in Javon Kinlaw, you brought in Deebo Samuel. We went live a couple days after that, but you made a lot of really good moves, a lot of really big moves in free agency, and time will tell whether those
Laramie
work.
Tunsil, how can we forget about the biggest move of the offseason to this point? You know, Tunsil was really the move that I was the most happy with, but you also let some pretty darn good players walk out the door as well. Jeremy Chin left for the Raiders, and then other players as well end up leaving this team. Jonathan Allen ends up getting released, going to the Minnesota Vikings. So I still think that, Adam Peters could be working on, the cherry on top here, which would be a Trey Hendrickson trade, Joey. And if that happens, I think that could do for the Commanders' defensive line what the Laramie Tunsil trade is going to do for the offensive line.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I don't know if you saw the most recent report today that he's kind of getting frustrated with how things are going. And if you're Cincinnati, I know Trey Hendrickson is an absolute stud, but does it make financial sense to sign him to a big deal, or are you hamstringing yourself too much?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, if they get Hendrickson, they've had all these players before, and they weren't a playoff team because they didn't have enough around them, right? And if you're already paying Higgins, you're already paying Chase, you're already paying Burrow, you've got all of your offensive pieces under contract, and, losing a guy like Trey Hendrickson would make this defense even worse compared to what has been the last 2 years. I mean, Hendrickson was the league sack leader last year, and they were still a bottom five defense in the league last year. So losing that kind of player just really limits what they're going to be able to do defensively moving forward. They do have a new defensive coordinator in-house there in Cincinnati, but, it'll be tough defensively there in Cincinnati if they don't have Trey Hendrickson. So that's why, kind of the reporting we have heard the last couple of weeks was that it was very positive that they were going to get a deal done, but we still sit here a couple weeks away from the NFL draft. No deal's been made. And then he goes on McAfee today, and he's like, I'm disappointed with the way things have gone. And he publicly says that. And Trey is not the kind of guy that, is a diva or anything like that. But, I think he wants things to get things going here. And if Adam Peters can find a way, even if it's trading the first-round pick here in Washington this year to get Trey Hendrickson, I think it's more than worth it, because this is a Commanders team, man, where you've got 4 more years of contract control play from Jaden Daniels. And you can kind of stock up on some of these larger contracts because you're paying your quarterback nothing. So I think that even if they do trade that first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, I think that's a deal that is absolutely worth it for the Washington Commanders, and I'm hoping Adam Peters is able to get that deal done in the days to come. But today we got 4 segments of Commanders Report live coverage for you guys. Latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn talked about some new additions in Javon Kinlaw and Deebo Samuel at the NFL owners meetings this week. I'll let you guys know what they said and my thoughts on those 2 acquisitions. Then we'll go over some of the latest NFL mock drafts and who they have the Commanders taking in round 1. There's also a 7-round Commanders mock draft from ESPN's Matt Miller that we'll talk about during that second segment today. Then I have my very own Commanders mock draft, 7 rounds for you guys, my 5.0 version where I actually have a trade for the Commanders in this one this week. And then we will get to our live Q&A. It's been a month since we've done our last Q&A, so it's about time you guys get your questions in. Lots of new stuff to talk about, guys. Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, Javon Kinlaw, lots of different players that the Commanders ended up signing in free agency. So if you got questions about any of those players, if you got any questions about the Commanders in general, make sure you guys use #Commanders down there in the comment section or Super Chat to get your question on today's mailbag. And I'll tell you guys what, if we can get to our final segment today and we get to the end of the mailbag and we have $50 in total donations today, Joey and I will stay live for an extra 10 minutes to talk Commanders football with you guys at the end of the show, all right? So $50 is the goal. We really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Also, you can check out our NFL Draft channel. here at Chat Sports. I'm heading up a lot of our coverage on that channel during draft season. We've already put out my edge rusher rankings, my quarterback rankings, my wide receiver rankings, my running back rankings, all that stuff, guys. So you guys can click that subscribe button if you haven't already for dedicated NFL draft coverage on our NFL Draft channel. Joey's putting the link to that in the comments of today's live show. So if you guys want more coverage from me, and if you love NFL Draft content, that's another great Chat Sports channel for you guys to check out. All right, before we get into our first segment here, let's get some shout-outs going. Type those me's if you have clicked that thumbs up icon already to kick off today's show. We need to get to at least 40 likes to kick off today's show into our first segment. We got 100 people watching. Just 25 people have clicked that thumbs up icon, though. We need to get to 40 in order to get to our first segment. So, Joey, take it away with the first round of shout-outs for the day.
XM Velocity is here. They've liked it. We got Richard Barker. We got Peter. Your boy Football Elite. Fantastic Fun. XM Velocity. Fantastic Fun. Your boy Christopher Douglas. Fantastic. XM. Your boy. Fantastic. Lots of people at 38
we
likes.
We need two more likes.
Cassie
there we go.
both.
We got there.
There we go.
All right, we got to 40 likes. So without further ado, let's get into our first segment of the day. Our first one today will be the latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders. Then we'll get into our mock draft roundup. Then my mock draft here, my latest 7-round mock draft. And then we'll finish up today's show by taking your questions on the Burgundy and Gold. So without further ado, let's get into our first segment today, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today we're going to be talking about two new acquisitions that the Washington Commanders made this offseason in Javon Kinlaw and Deebo Samuel. Adam Peters, the Commanders GM, defended the signing of Javon Kinlaw, giving him $15 million per season. And then Dan Quinn, the head coach, spoke very glowingly about Deebo Samuel. So today we're going to be talking about both of those acquisitions here for the Washington Commanders and how they can affect both sides of the ball for this team heading into 2025. Before we get into our first segment today, share today's video on your social media, specifically on X if you have an X account, to help grow our channel. It's word of mouth referrals like this one or like that really help out this channel. All right, if you got somebody in your life that's a Commanders fan, send this video to them. But also if you just want to send it out and really show up, you guys can go click that share button at the bottom of today's show. Select the X icon. Tag me in the post at Jack_Sperry, and then send the post. If you guys share today's video, I'll give you a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report. All right, so let's start here with Javon Kinlaw here, where Adam Peters, of course, was a part of the San Francisco 49er organization when they drafted Kinlaw 14th overall back in 2020, and now has given Kinlaw a 3-year, $45 million contract, giving him $15 million per season in NFL free agency to make him the latest edge rusher for the interior pass rusher for the Washington Commanders. This is what Adam Peters had to say about Kinlaw at the NFL owners meetings in Palm Beach this week. Javon had a major injury, knee construction in 2021. To his credit, he fought back and came back even better, which was really impressive. How much he played 2 years ago in San Francisco and how much he played last year with the New York Jets, those are like his first 2 NFL years in essence. And he's got the hunger to get better and better. His best football is in front of him. He's a freak. It's unbelievable. I've seen him when he is as low as 275 in San Francisco and then as high as 330 plus last year with the Jets. He played 60% of the snaps at 319 pounds, which is impressive. If he loses 10 or 15 pounds, if that makes him feel better, he's still going to be just as effective. He's still a monster. So it definitely seems like Adam Peters feels like Javon Kinlaw is still a monster athletically and thinks that he can still be a very, very good player in the National Football League. Here's kind of his journey so far in the National Football League, guys, where he's drafted 14th overall by the 49ers out of South Carolina back in 2020. He missed most of the 2021 and 2022 seasons with ACL sprains. He had surgery to reconstruct his ACL back in 2021, and then he spent 4 years in San Francisco. Again, 2 of those years were injured, and then one of them was a rookie season. He really only had one fully healthy year there in San Fran, and then he started all 17 games last year for the Jets alongside Quinnen Williams. But, throughout his career, the story about Kinlaw is he's been all potential, but not a lot of production. And you guys can see last year as a full-time starter for the Jets, just 4.5 sacks, 40 tackles, and 5 tackles for loss. Did have 2 forced fumbles, but, this isn't necessarily the production that you wanted to see from him. Robert Saleh, of course, knew him well from San Francisco. He brought him into the Jets last year and was probably expecting a little bit more out of Kinlaw than what he got in 2024, just a 53.4 PFF grade. And for a full-time starter, 4.5 sacks is not terrible, but when you compare Javon Kinlaw with what you would have gotten from Jonathan Allen if he would have played an entire 17-game schedule, and I'm not sure if it's much of an upgrade, if I'm being completely honest with you. Jonathan Allen would have had more QB hits. He had a higher PFF grade. Now, they're pretty comparable, I would say. So, maybe you want to get a little bit younger at the position. I'd say that's probably the benefit of getting a guy like Javon, is that he's still getting better. But you look at kind of the money swap here. The money that you saved by cutting Jonathan Allen this year was $16.47 million, and you pretty much replaced that money that you got from cutting Allen by paying Kinlaw a $15 million per season average on his average salary on his contract. So, I'm not sure if it's necessarily an upgrade at the defensive tackle position, but maybe it's a wash, and maybe that's good enough for the Washington Commanders heading into next year. When he's been healthy in his career, to be honest with you guys, the PFF grades have not been great. Now, PFF grading is not gospel by any stretch of the imagination, but if you've had 3 healthy seasons and you're only grading in the mid-50s in each of the seasons, maybe you're not being the most effective player in the world. Now, last year he did rank 79th out of 118 defensive tackles. That was the highest overall grade he has received in his NFL career to this point. He also had a career high in sacks last year as well. But he's certainly somebody that hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype that allowed him to be taken 14th overall back in 2020. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Was the Javon Kinlaw signing at 3 years, $45 million total a good one? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And while I'm talking about PrizePicks today, simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks, which is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone. You can download the PrizePicks app today and get started with over 10 million active members on their app right now. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that could lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can get your lineups in for the start of baseball season. We're taking the more on pitcher strikeouts for Paul Skeens, the more on pitcher strikeouts for Skubal, taking the more on triples for the season for Duran Duran, and we're taking the more on stolen bases for Shohei Ohtani throughout the course of the 2025 baseball season. So download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. So just kind of sharing my thoughts on Javon Kinlaw here and my scouting report on the former first-round pick. The things that you're going to like from Kinlaw, guys, is he's got great size, really good length. He's got some really nasty power rushes on film, and when he's got that bull rush right, it's really dominant. And what allows it to be really dominant is because of the get-off. It's true that was his truly special trait coming out of South Carolina, was his ability to get out of his stance at his size as quickly as he does, and that's what Adam Peters is referring to when he calls him a freak and when he calls him a monster, because you just don't see interior defensive pass rushers at his size and at his length and with his sheer amount of power get out of their stance as quickly as he does. He's also a pretty darn good athlete, and because he's got so much power, his specialty is really as a stunt technician, where he's just completely obliterating guards and tackles to allow loopers, and but that'll be Frankie Louvu and others in this Commanders defense They like to do lots of stunts and games in this defensive structure, and Kinlaw is certainly going to help them do that. But the cons, he is a terrible run defender, plain and simply. Plays too high, he gets blown off the spot too much, and for such a powerful guy, it really is disappointing to see how bad he is as a run defender. He also doesn't have much other than just a pure power rush at this point. He's not a great hand fighter, and then there have been immaturity issues going back to college and even in his early days there with the San Francisco 49ers. So my take on him, guys, is that he's a designated pass rusher and a stunt specialist. He's not a true every down starter because of how bad he is as a run defender, to be quite frank with you. And I think what Kinlaw's job should be in this defense is to be an absolute menace as a designated interior pass rusher, where on passing downs he can go in there, do the bull rush thing, and he can also be just a complete wrecking ball when it comes to the stunts in games that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. like to run in this defense to open up opportunities for guys like Frankie Louvu and others when you are doing all the different stuff that you're doing in your sub packages and in kind of the crazy third down blitz looks that you throw at opposing quarterbacks. But the issue is, this is kind of the same role that you kind of envision Javon Newton playing in the future. He's under 300 pounds. He's more of a true kind of pass rusher. And I do think Javon Newton is the future at this position. Kinlaw, I think, could potentially start at the start the season as a starter, but Javon is certainly the future at that position alongside Daron Payne, who's more of your run-stuffing, bigger body defensive tackle in the 4-2 structure, the nickel base that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. deploy in this defense. So I think that, Javon and Jerzon kind of similar skill sets, and that worries me a little bit on early downs because Daron Payne is really the only true run defending defensive tackle that you have on the team right now. I think Sheldon Day did a good job last year in run defense. Maybe he comes in on early downs to help you in that regard. But it certainly seems like the Commanders at this point are relying on either Javon Newton, who's under 300 pounds, or Javon Kinlaw, who's got the size requirements, but doesn't necessarily have the great tape against the run in his career to really feel comfortable having him be a 3-down starter. So that's kind of where I'm at with Javon Kinlaw at this point, guys. I hope that was a good breakdown for you. But now let's shift our focus to Deebo Samuel here. And Dan Quinn obviously is the head coach of this football team, and he spoke glowingly about his new wide receiver at the NFL owners meetings in Palm Beach this week. This is what Coach Q had to say about the new weapon on the Commanders' offense. Coaching against him, this is an explosive player. Not just the scheme, but after he gets the ball in his hand, sometimes you can just tell the toughness of a player with and without the ball, and he has both of those, the explosive nature. So to add the player of his caliber into a tough and strong group, we're really pumped about it. Sometimes when there's a unique player and you're wanting to give special attention, but they're inside, outside, in the backfield, all the spots. And fortunately, also Cliff's offense, also talking about Cliff Kingsbury here, really equipped at that too, and had to be unique and feature players into their best spot. So I'm really pumped to have him. So essentially what Dan Quinn is saying here is that he's excited about the versatility that Deebo Samuel brings to the table here in Washington, the ability to line him up outside, the ability to line him up into the slot, to line him up in the backfield. Defenses are going to have to know where Deebo Samuel is at all times to use him on all these different orbit motions and jet motions and all the different stuff that we know Cliff Kingsbury loves to do. And now he's got a true chess piece in Deebo Samuel to be able to run that kind of offense in its most purest form and at its most effective form. So you got Terry McLaurin, your true number one ball winner on the outside. Now you got your chess piece in Deebo Samuel. Now I think the question is, will the Commanders add another starting caliber wide receiver, specifically in the NFL draft? Because they did bring back Noah Brown. They do have Luke McCaffrey, who they spent a relatively high draft pick on last year. And those are two guys that could certainly contribute to the Washington Commanders receiving game this year. But there's also room here, in my opinion, for somebody to be drafted, particularly maybe even in the early rounds, to really grow and develop with Jaden Daniels as his maybe even potential future number one weapon in the wide receiver room. Because let's face it, Terry and Deebo are on the other side of 30. They're not getting any younger, and it's not like Noah Brown or Luke McCaffrey, with respect to those guys, are going to be number one receiving weapons of the future. And if McCaffrey ends up developing into that, I will be greatly and very positively surprised by that. But I don't see McCaffrey as a true number one threat in the future. And if you have an opportunity to get somebody you really believe in, say in round 2, to fill out the rest of this wide receiver group, I think that's certainly something that I would consider, and I wouldn't mind it at all. Even if they took maybe say a Mecca Egbuka at number 29, or if somebody falls like Jaden Higgins in round 1, and that's who they wanted to go get to pair with Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, I would be okay with that. Now, I do think there's other positions you want to make sure that you kind of handle in the NFL draft. Strong safety and edge rusher, kind of the two main ones there, but also wide receiver is a position that could still be looked to be upgraded in the NFL draft here, and there's lots of good options. It's not as good of a wide receiver class as we've seen in previous seasons, but there's plenty of really good wide receiver talent in the early and middle rounds this year, and even the late rounds for that matter, that I think the Washington Commanders can take advantage of this year if they want to upgrade this room still. So weigh in for me down there in the comments section. Should the Washington Commanders draft another wide receiver this year? Type D if you would draft another wideout, or type P if you would pass on getting another pass catcher here in Washington. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate all of you guys making it to the end of today's program. Really do appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow, and until then, go raise some hail. All right, first segment in the books. Coming up next, mock draft reaction roundup here. So we got a bunch of different mock drafts that have been released either today or just a couple days before today, Joey, and we're going to be reacting to those. Anything that stood out to you in that first segment that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. The Kinlaw signing has always been a real head scratcher to me. And I'm really, really concerned with the money. And we've talked about this before. Just because you have a lot of money, which Washington did going into the offseason, doesn't mean you have to spend it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't spend it wisely. It's one of those moves that if it works out, great, but I don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
The production hasn't really been there. I mean, last year he had 4.5 sacks, and that was his career high to this point. Now, pretty much 2 of his seasons were destroyed by injury, so he's really only had 3 true NFL seasons to this point, but he's been a disappointment. He came out of South Carolina with a ton of potential, and he still has that potential, by the way. Got long arms, and he's done a lot of really good things in his NFL career, and he's got a lot of tools, which is why I think Adam Peters really likes him. And he's got the body type to be a good run defender. He's just not. And it's like, will he be able to develop that? If he does, great. You got 2 good run defending DTs in Daron Payne and Javon Kinlaw. And then Kinlaw will bring you the pass rushing upside as well, which is phenomenal. But right now, I just don't know if I see it. Jerzon Newton, at his lighter weight, really struggled to hold blocks last year. I think Sheldon Day did a pretty decent job last year, but I don't know if I see that true early down run defending defensive tackle to go alongside Daron Payne on this roster right now, and that worries me a little bit, especially when you're going to have to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's the team to beat in the NFC. And of course, they've got maybe the best running back in the world right now in Saquon Barkley, and
one of the best offensive lines,
and a great offensive line. So you're going to have this defensive line be equipped to handle all the different physicality that they bring to the table. Right now, I don't know if I see it on this roster. Now, they got the potential for it, and, $15 million per season is a lot of money for a guy like Javon Kinlaw, who's pretty much a projection. But what I will say about Kinlaw, if I can play devil's advocate here, there's a reason why Robert Saleh and Adam Peters, former San Francisco 49ers guys, love him, all right? They've obviously seen something in him and have seen something in years prior that tell them, hey, this guy's got the potential to be pretty freaking good. And there was other teams interested in Kinlaw as well, which is why it was so expensive to get him. But, he's a Washington native, which is something that I like. He's going to be fighting like hell to bring this team another championship. But it's definitely a projection, and we'll see if it pans out for this team. He's a very talented individual, but we have to see it in terms of the production on the field for me to feel good about it.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that's keeping me on the ropes about Kinlaw is, you see the potential, you see the projection, you see the athleticism, but how often is it that a guy in year 5 finally figures it out? Yeah. And I get it, 2 years of injury, he's been in and out of that, and hasn't been dealt a great hand health-wise, but still, I feel like it's very uncommon for a guy in year 5 for things to finally click.
Well, this is year 6 now.
Year 6.
So it's going to be year 6 that you're expecting him to take that jump. So, we'll see if it happens. 15 seems to be a lot to me, but the other person we talked about, Deebo Samuel, I'm very excited for, so at least there's that. All right, let's get into our mock draft roundup here, guys. The latest NFL mock drafts have the Commanders taken who? We're going to talk about it right now. The latest NFL mock drafts have hit the presses, and today I'm going to be reacting to who all the top NFL draft analysts are projecting for the Washington Commanders in round 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft, and I'm going to be sharing my take on those players today. Before we get into it today, I also host our NFL Draft channel here at Chat Sports, guys. So if you love the NFL Draft, you're a draft nerd like myself, and you want some more content from me, you can find me over on our Draft channel. I'll put the link to our Draft channel down in the comments and description of today's show, so you guys can click that subscribe button and join us over on NFL Draft by Chat Sports. So let's start with Field Yates, who just put out his new NFL mock draft, and he has the Commanders taking Nick Emmanwori, the safety, out of South Carolina. Now, Emmanwori has been somebody that has been projected to the Washington Commanders quite a bit here over the last several weeks, especially since after the Combine, and for good reason. We'll talk about those reasons here in just a second. But first, this is why Field Yates has Emmanwori to the Burgundy and Gold. The Commanders added veteran defensive back Will Harris in free agency to replace Jeremy Chinn, but Emmanwori could have some appeal to their defensive staff given Dan Quinn's history of using safeties in creative ways. Emmanwori's physical tools are off the charts. He ran a 4.38 in the 40 at the Combine despite weighing 220 pounds. He also jumped 43 inches in the vertical. Emmanwori is a menace with the football in his hands and took 2 of his 4 interceptions to the house last season. And like Field Yates points out here, guys, he is an absolute physical freak, all right? 4.38 at his size, literally all green boxes on the relative athletic score, leading to the perfect 10 out of 10 relative athletic score. You want to know the only other safety ever to get a perfect 10 out of 10? That's right, it was Jeremy Chinn, who just left this team for the Las Vegas Raiders. So who better to replace his spot in the Commanders' defense? Now, my take on Emmanwori here, guys, is that he is a perfect fit for what Dan Quinn wants in his strong safety. Big, physical, versatile, fast, all these different things. And I certainly understand why people, and a lot of people that I really respect, are kind of projecting him to the Washington Commanders in late round 1. But I do think his film is underwhelming. I still think he has areas he needs to grow in. I think his pursuit angles in run defense are not great. I think sometimes he can miss a lot of tackles and not be very good out in open space. And those things tend to concern me a little bit. I also think he could be a little bit tight at the top of routes and in man coverage and all these different things. So I thought that his film was very underwhelming given his physical profile, but obviously he's still a young player. He can still grow once he gets into the right building. And, this guy's got the potential to be one of the best safeties in football. So if the Commanders take him in round 1, I'll be a little bit skeptical of it, especially in year 1 with a team trying to win now, because I do think he has a ways to go before he becomes what he could be. But the talent is certainly there, and I think that it's a perfect fit in terms of what Dan Quinn is looking for in his strong safety. So let me know down there in the comments section, who do you want the Commanders to take in round 1 this year? Do you want Emmanwori? Do you want an edge rusher? Do you want something else? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time by letting me know your preference for the Commanders pick at number 29 in round 1. Now we'll move over to NFL Network's Bucky Brooks here, who has the Commanders taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Kind of a surprising pick here because Golden is being projected as a top 15 pick right now after his stellar performance at the NFL Combine. This is what Bucky had to say about Golden to the Commanders. The motivation to build around 2024 Offensive Rookie of the Year Jaden Daniels could prompt the Commanders to take a playmaker early. Now you guys can see here that Golden is a bit undersized, but he's got excellent speed. He ran a 4.29 40-yard dash. The unofficial was 4.3, but his official ended up being 4.29. So he had the fastest time of any receiver at the combine, and he pairs that with some really nice film, some great ball tracking ability down the field, some one-handed catches, some really, really fluid route running, and some good stuff after the catch as well. So because of that entire collection of talents that he brings to the table, I kind of doubt he's going to make it to number 29. If he does, that'd be great, and I think that Golden could be the future number one target for Jaden Daniels when Terry McLaurin eventually leaves this football team, and can be a true number 2 threat alongside Deebo Samuel and, of course, Scary Terry in the meantime. But, like I said, I don't think he's going to make it here to number 29. I could even see him being a top 10 pick this year because of the blazing speed that he showed off at the combine this year. But I could see Washington take a wide receiver at some point during the NFL draft this year, because you do have Terry McLaurin, you do have Deebo Samuel. Then after that, Noah Brown is fine, I guess. You got Luke McCaffrey, who you drafted in the 3rd round last year, showed some good things, especially after the catch last year. But I don't think there's anybody that's a young receiver in this group right now that you really feel like is going to be your number 1 receiving weapon of the future. Now, obviously, Terry McLaurin is going to be the number 1 receiving threat here for a while at this point, but I look at the situation right now, and I would love to get a younger wide receiver alongside Luke McCaffrey and Terry McLaurin to build alongside Jaden Daniels for the future, but probably not in round 1. Then we get to Lance Zierlein, also from NFL Network here. He has the Commanders taking Trey Amos, the cornerback out of Ole Miss. Now, Amos is one of my favorite cornerback prospects in this entire class. We'll talk about him here in just one second. But this is what Lance had to say about the fit between Amos and the Commanders. Amos is a smooth-hipped corner with natural man cover talent who would give the Commanders better size to match up on the outside. And, I think that Amos is a really good player, like I said, and, Lance tends to agree with me on that. He's a bigger corner that's really fluid in his hips, that, he can just mirror like nobody's business. He's got excellent technique in man coverage. I also think his zone eyes are pretty darn good as well. But the Commanders want to play a lot of man, and they want to play physical football. Amos is perfectly built for that. Now, he's not the best athlete in terms of straight line speed, so he could get burned in terms of the deep ball down the sideline if he gets beat in press, but he doesn't get beat in press all that often. So I think that he is a borderline first-round talent. I think he probably ends up going on day 2. But somebody is going to get a player that they absolutely love, probably in the 2nd round with Amos, and he's an absolutely awesome player. But like I said, guys, when it comes to the Commanders, I don't think corner is going to be a target for them in round 1. Now, to be clear, I do think they'll take a corner at some point because Jonathan Jones is kind of on a shorter-term deal. Marshawn Lattimore is certainly not a for sure thing for the future. He's got 1 year left on his deal, and then you got Mike Sainristil who you want to keep in the slot. So I won't say it's impossible the Commanders take a corner early, especially if the guy that they really like is here at number 29. But I do think other positions, edge rusher, safety, etc., will probably be the more likely options in the early rounds, namely on night 1. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, more mock draft reactions, including a 7-round mock draft from ESPN's Matt Miller, one of their lead NFL draft analysts there at ESPN. But before we get into the rest of the mock drafts I'm going to be reacting to today, you guys can get this, which is the official 2025 NFL draft hat for your Washington Commanders. They also have this really cool off-white color with the gold leafing on the brim. I actually ordered this one for myself, guys, but this is the one right here that the draft picks are going to be wearing on draft night. So if you want to go to chatsports.com/2025draft, you can get your officially licensed Washington Commanders 2025 NFL Draft Hat from our friends at Fanatics today. And then another added bonus is that you actually help out our channel when you make a purchase using our link, chatsports.com/2025draft, because every time someone makes a purchase using that link, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds. So if you guys want to help us keep the lights on here and then also get yourselves a really stylish Commanders Draft Hat to put in your collection, go to chatsports.com/2025draft to get that in your closet today. So we'll move over to Bruce Feldman here, who works for The Athletic, one of their draft analysts there, alongside Dane Brugler, of course. And he has the Commanders taking James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee, number 29 overall. This is what Feldman had to say about Pierce. With sack leader Dante Fowler Jr. gone to Dallas, Washington needs a jolt on the D-line. And the choice here is Pierce over Shamar Stewart, another combine freak. Pierce, at 6'5", 245 pounds, is smaller but more productive. His athleticism is elite, and he truly is elite as we can take a look at his profile here, guys. And even though he's a little bit undersized in terms of his weight, 245, he brings a lot of power to the game, all right? Like, he will bull rush people. And, his ability to convert speed to power using that really elite athleticism is something that I am really, really excited by when it comes to James Pierce Jr. And also ran that 4.47, which is an elite time for an edge rusher. This guy is a freak. Now, he does have shorter arms for what would be considered an elite NFL edge rusher, but he can beat you in a lot of ways. He can beat you with speed and get off the edge. He can beat you with some finesse moves as well, and then he can straight up go through you with the bull rush even at 245 pounds. So I would be thrilled with James Pierce Jr. at number 29, and it's actually not impossible he makes it here because of some of the character concerns that is being cited with him. If there's some teams that flag him and think that he's not a good fit for their locker room, there's certainly a chance with the plethora of potential first-round edge talent in this draft that Pierce is the one that ends up falling to the end of the first round, right there for the taking and right into the arms of the Washington Commanders. So now we go over to Warren Sharp here. Who is kind of does his own thing, very analytical guy, somebody that is good follow on Twitter, by the way. He has the Commanders taking Oluwafemi Oladejo, edge rusher out of UCLA, currently being projected as a late day 2 or early day 3 pick in the first round here. And this one would be a little bit of a surprise because Oladejo, like I said, is being projected more as, kind of like a project. He's only had 1 year at the edge rusher position. Now, he's already developed some very nuanced pass rush moves, namely the cross chop, which is one of the most difficult pass rushing moves to pull off. Leatu Latu, last year's UCLA pass rusher, was also very good at that move. So whoever's teaching the cross chop there at UCLA knows what they're doing. But Oluwafemi is somebody that the Commanders have shown a lot of interest in. So I can kind of understand why Warren kind of is seeing that connection and saying, all right, they would prefer him in the first round here. And he's got a lot of potential. He's got long arms. He's a great athlete, all these different things. He's got all the tools. He's still developing, though, and he's still very much a raw run defender, which is actually okay because the Commanders need more of a true designated pass rusher anyway. But the first round is probably a little bit of a reach for me. I would be okay with taking Oladejo on day 2. Whether that's in the second round or if they trade down and get an extra third-round pick, I'd be fine with them spending that third-round pick on Oladejo. Very talented individual. But the first round, I think you could probably get some other players at some other positions of need and then get Oladejo later if that's truly your target. So before we get into the rest of the mock drafts here, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you want more draft videos like this one on the Commanders Report every single day. We follow the likes, all right? The cops, they follow the money. We follow the likes here at the Commanders Report. So if you guys like the video, we will make more of these kinds of videos. So if you guys like the draft stuff, make sure you click that thumbs up icon so that you guys can really let us know what kind of content you want to see on this channel. So the final mock draft here is the Matt Miller from ESPN 7-round mock draft for your Washington Commanders. Now there's only 5 picks because the Commanders only possess 5 draft picks right now, but these are the 5 picks that Matt has the Steelers or the Commanders taking. In round 1, he has Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. I'm not in love with that because I think Stewart is a little bit more of a developmental prospect, and the Commanders really need somebody to be a good edge rusher on designated pass situations right away. All right, I don't know if Stewart really brings that. I would much rather have James Pierce Jr. or Mykel Williams. Then you got Kevin Winston Jr. In the second round, love Kevin Winston Jr.'s film, man. He spent all of last year pretty much injured, but his 2023 film had him in the first-round conversation heading into the season. So that could be a potential steal right there in round 2. Love that pick. Then in round 4, they have him taking Trevor Etienne in round 4. And Etienne, I think, has the potential to be a very good, very explosive kind of scat back in the league. And I think that the plan there would be have him play behind Austin Eckler for a season and then take Eckler's spot as kind of the third down back moving forward. But honestly, I think there's better backs that are going to be available in round 4 than Etienne, who I have a day 3 grade on. And a mid one at that. Then in round 6, Tommy Hill, cornerback out of Nebraska, and then Ricky White, a phenomenal special teams player in round 7 at pick 2 45. So grade this mock draft down there in the comments section. These 5 picks, give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. For me personally, I like the Kevin Winston Jr. pick, but all the other picks I'm kind of lukewarm on. So I'll give it a B to be nice to Matt Miller here, but let me know your guys' grade down there in the comments section. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more Commanders draft content all throughout the draft season. We got weekly mock drafts, in-depth prospect analysis, these mock draft roundups, just about every single week as well. So if you guys want more Commanders draft content right here on YouTube for free, click that subscribe button right now. 2 segments in the books here, Mr. Joey. We just went over everybody else's mock drafts, and now it's time to get into my mock draft. My 5.0 7-round Commanders mock draft here with a trade. I have a trade today, so some pretty interesting stuff coming your way. Any interesting picks from that last segment that you want to talk about, Joey?
Yeah, let me scroll back up. I think the Oladejo pick is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
I would be really surprised if he went in the first round. I get it. He's got a ton
long
of potential.
Arms,
and
great athleticism.
He's built incredibly right, but gosh, the first round seems like a little bit of a reach to me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that there would be a complete meltdown on Commanders Twitter if that was the pick. I think I would be higher on the pick than most would because I actually think he's got a future. I like him a lot. And the Commanders are showing a lot of attention to him right now. But I think you can probably get him on day 2. Why not get a true first-round talent at a different position and then take the guy that you like in Oladejo on day 2?
Yeah.
I feel like that should be the strategy. But if he ends up being the first-round pick, I'll be like, this guy can be your designated pass rusher on day 1, and he can potentially be your number 1 edge rusher of the future if he develops a little bit more.
Well, and I think it's different, too, because Washington just doesn't have any draft picks. I mean, they've got 5. If you were a team like the Baltimore Ravens, they have 11. That's kind of one of those situations where you're like, okay, you can maybe take a shot, maybe roll the dice. But when you only have 5 draft picks, to roll the dice on your first-round pick in Oladejo and pick a guy that you could probably get in the second, I don't think that's great strategy. One question I want to ask you, how concerned are you with James Pierce Jr.'s character concerns?
I don't like to get into that stuff really because I don't know. I don't know him. I don't have connections to area scouts where it's like I get information on the ground. Now, I know you've heard some stuff about him because you've got some connections to the Tennessee Volunteers, and all I know is what you've told me that they have told you. So,
have you heard the most recent report that came out either yesterday or today?
What was that?
It was they quoted a Tennessee player that played with him, and basically said, some days we'd be working out and he was in his apartment. There's a lot of times we just didn't know where he was. So that was the most recent thing.
And listen, man, this is why the interviews, this is why, bringing them in on a top 30 visit, all these different things, that's why those things are important because you want to get a good feel for the person, especially when these kinds of rumors are floating around a guy like that. But he's a top 3 edge rusher in this class. He really is. On tape, he's awesome. He should be a top 20 pick, bona fide. Just based on his tape. But obviously, all these teams are going to be doing their research on him. And if they feel like he can still be a good fit and he's a good kid and he's just, misunderstood or whatever, then he'll probably go top 15, honestly. But if these concerns are legit and there's a lot of different people that are saying stuff about him that are not particularly great, he might fall to the Commanders. And if you're the Commanders, do you think about taking a player like this who could be legitimately your number 1 edge rusher on day 1 with the current group that this team has? I think that is a risk that maybe you want to take.
I totally agree. I'm not that concerned with him. I think he has to fall somewhere with a great culture. And I think Dan Quinn has built that. And I think that Washington is that. If he's a guy who goes somewhere like the Jacksonville Jaguars, somewhere that doesn't have a rock-solid team culture, who knows how he's going to turn out. But if he gets somewhere like if he got to Pittsburgh or like if he went to Washington or Baltimore or somewhere that
Detroit.
Yes, exactly, has built a culture of winning, a culture of just competing, of grinding, I think he's going to turn out just fine.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of why I don't think he'll fall to 29 because if he falls to this area of the first round, I feel like Detroit's going to take him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a hard time believing he would fall past Detroit, Baltimore, Green Bay, all of those places that kind of would love to use another edge rusher.
Just a reminder here, guys, we have our mock draft coming up next, but then we have our live Q&A. So if you guys want to get your questions in, you put in those questions down in the live chat. All you have to do is put your question in the chat along with hashtag Commanders, or if you want to guarantee your spot on the mailbag today, you guys can super chat any dollar amount. It could be a $2 super chat, whatever. It doesn't matter the amount, but if you guys want to make sure you get your question on the mailbag, you can super chat, or if you want to leave it up to Joey, you can go hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat room right now.
Let me take a look on how we're standing with questions right now.
All right, sounds good. Joey's going to check the amount of questions we've got.
We've got a decent bit. Would love a few more. We got 130 people in here. We're about to get into our next cut. You guys go ahead, get in the comment section, get in the chat, ask Jack a question, and we'll do our best to get it on the show. Our next one, just got another one from JG. All y'all got to do is use hashtag Commanders. Anything you want to know, draft, trade, free agency, next season, anything you got for Jack, we'll do our best efforts for him to be able to answer that. And we got 126 people here, so obviously you guys are curious about some things. Just go ahead, ask it, get a chance to be on the show.
Yeah, get your questions in. Anything that you want us to talk about, we'll talk about it today. You've got draft, free agency, trade questions. If you want me to talk about Trey Hendrickson, we can do that as well. Just let me know your question down there. Make sure you use hashtag Commanders in the comments so Joey can see it and put it on the show. But without further ado, while you get your questions in here, let's go into my latest 7-round Commanders mock draft coming at you right now. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today it is yet another 7-round Commanders mock draft. It is my 5.0 version of the Commanders mock draft this year. So before we get into it today, make sure you click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, because if we can get to 500 likes on today's show, I'll have another mock draft for you guys next week, all right? As long as you guys keep wanting these mock drafts, we will keep providing them for you for free here on the Commanders Report. So if you want more of these mock drafts, you want one every single week, click that thumbs up icon every time you click into one. Now hold on here. I'm at pick number 29, and I'm getting ready to make my pick, but my phone is ringing, all right? And it's the Cleveland Browns, and they want to trade up for a quarterback at the end of round 1. And right now they are offering us their first pick in the second round, number 33 overall, and one of their third-round picks, number 94 overall, to move up to our pick at number 29 to select their quarterback of choosing that is still on the board. All right, and I'm going to accept this, all right? I think that getting another day 2 draft pick is absolutely worth moving down just 4 spots. And I think that, the Commanders still have a pretty decent chance of getting the player that they may want in round 1 by moving down these 4 spots and picking at the top of round 2. And with that first pick in the second round, I'm going to take Nick Emmanwori out of South Carolina. And, the thing about Emmanwori is that I think that he might be a little bit overrated in terms of how he looks on film. I still think he has a little ways to go. But I think that he is a perfect fit for the Washington Commanders and what they're looking for in a strong safety. Will Harris is not kind of the Jeremy Chinn type of archetype, all right? He's more of a versatile chess piece that moves around, a little bit of a disguise piece, but in terms of a true box safety, which is what Dan Quinn usually wants in his defense, he doesn't really fit that bill, at least in my opinion. So I think the Commanders are really going to be prioritizing trying to get that true box safety in this draft, and Emmanwori can fill that role, all right? He's a very, very big, physical, strong safety that is also incredibly fast. If you want to put him at free safety, you can. If you want to put him in the slot, you can, because of all the athletic gifts that he brings to the table. A perfect 10 out of 10 relative athletic score, and the only other safety in NFL history that has got a perfect 10 out of 10 is the person that he'd be replacing in Jeremy Chinn, who also had a perfect 10 out of 10 coming out of Southern Illinois all those years back. So I think that Emmanwori, at least in Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s eyes, would be a perfect replacement for Jeremy Chinn, who ended up going to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I don't think he's a perfect prospect, but I do think he's a very good prospect with insanely high upside. And, when you have to face the Eagles twice a year, you need to bring people in that are going to lay the boom, that are going to be imposing players and very versatile players, guys that are fast, big, and can tackle with long arms. And that's what Emmanwori brings to the table. So I think that he has an excellent chance of being the first player off the board going to the Washington Commanders. Now, when it comes to this trade down proposal, is this something that you would be interested in if you're the Washington Commanders? Getting an additional day 2 pick in round 3 in exchange for just moving down 4 spots with the Cleveland Browns. Type A if you would accept it, or type D if you would decline this. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time by typing A for accept or D for decline. Then in round 2, I'm going to go edge rusher here, and I'm going to go Princely Umanmielen. I hope I got that right, producer Joey. But this guy out of Ole Miss, he's very interesting to me because he's a speed rusher, but he isn't fast. Now, if you're wondering how you could be a successful speed rusher without being a very fast player, well, it's because of his bend and his ability to turn the corner, get small and kind of get around that tackle is really, really good, especially for kind of a taller edge rusher as well. Now, I think that he's not the best run defender, so I don't think he would start as a full-time 3-down edge rusher for the Washington Commanders, who run a 4-2 base. They really base out of nickel in this defense now. It's over 80% of their snaps are in nickel. So I think Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, Cleveland Furrow, those are going to be your guys that are kind of the early down workers. But Umanmielen, I think, is somebody that can win and win consistently on the edge. And I think he has a very good chance of being available in round 2 when the Commanders pick at this spot. So I really like what he brings to the table. Brings some nice finesse as well. He's got a collection of finesse moves that he brings as well. He doesn't just speed rush off the edge, so he gives offensive tackles multiple things to worry about. He's not a great run defender, but he does have a pretty decent frame, and he can certainly grow into being a potential 3-down starter in the future. But the Commanders need a true designated pass rusher out of this draft class, in my opinion. Umanmielen brings that to the table for the Commanders on day 1. Then in round 3, pick number 94. So this is the pick we got from the Browns. I'm going to take Tate Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia. Just look at this guy, man. He has hog written all over him. All right, Rutledge is a really powerful player that is really good in man and gap schemes, not as much as like horizontally moving zone schemes. And Rutledge, I think, would be a perfect fit for what the Commanders want to do. They want to live in shotgun. They want to live in pistol. They don't want to do a whole lot of like horizontal, wide, and outside zone concepts. They like to run duo. They love to run gap concepts, all these different things that Cliff Kingsbury brought to the table last year. And I think that you can plug him in right away as your starting left guard over Nick Allegretti. Dan Quinn said at the NFL owners meetings this week that Brandon Coleman will be playing right tackle, at least to start the offseason program. And with Sam Cosmi looking like he's going to miss time with that ACL tear at the start of next season, Andrew Wiley is currently slated to start at right guard. And I still think Nick Allegretti is a good kind of depth piece, but he's not a true starter. I have a chance to get a true starter that's a good scheme fit and a great pass protector in Tate Rutledge. And, of course, I get his glorious mullet on this offensive line as well. So coming up here, day 3 picks for the Washington Commanders. Some draft sleepers for you guys to keep your eye on. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone, and it's 100% free to download right now, and you can join over 10 million members when you sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure, and when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can get your full season projections in on PrizePicks for baseball. Here I got my full season projections for Paul Skeens on strikeouts. Obviously, I'm taking the more. And I'm taking the more on Skubal strikeouts as well. More on triples for Jarren Duran. And then I got more on stolen bases for Shohei Ohtani. So you guys can download the app today. Use code CLNS. It's on your screen right now to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. So in round 4 here, I'm going to take, and this is going to bring a lot of PTSD back to Commanders fans here. I'm going to take an undersized outside corner in Coby Bryant out of Kansas. Now, Coby is very undersized, and people are going to be like, Jack, we just got done with Emmanuel Forbes. I don't want another skinny corner that is undersized. And I get it, and he is tiny, but he's also a dog, all right? And he is somebody that's going to get in your grill, and he is going to be somebody that lets you know when you have lost a rep. And that's something that I want in this Commanders defense. You already have a guy like that in Marshawn Lattimore, but you want people to fear this Commanders secondary. And Coby Bryant as a number 2 corner can kind of fill a similar role to what Mike Samerstill filled last year on the outside. I would like to move Samerstill back to the inside to the slot and so that he can be a true impact player. As a nickel, I think he's a good outside corner. I think he's a better slot defender, so that's where I would prefer to play him. You did bring in Jonathan Jones this year, but that's a short-term deal. I'm not sure if he's necessarily being viewed as the future of that position, but I think Coby Bryant's somebody that probably doesn't start week 1, but if Jonathan Jones struggles on the outside, like he did with the New England Patriots last year, you have an opportunity to go to Coby Bryant, and you could still have Mike Samerstill in the slot. You're not forced to move him back outside, and you can allow him to be the impact player that he can be in the slot. So Coby Bryant, really good in coverage, great competitor, and he's really good at mirroring concepts in man coverage. That's what the Commanders are looking for right now, and he's a hell of a competitor, and this guy's a football player, all right? So I'm going to bank on those traits. And I think that he's got a lot more dog in him than Emmanuel Forbes did, so I think that this one could be the skinny corner that works for the Washington Commanders. Then we get to round 6, and I'm going to take an inside linebacker, a thumper here, in Danny Stutzman, the inside linebacker out of OU. And the Sooner inside linebacker is terrible in coverage, which is why you're getting him in round 6. But there are a ton of inside backers in this league. First one that comes to mind is Landon Roberts, who has been a long-time starter in this league that just sucks in pass coverage, all right? And Bobby Wagner, for that matter, is not very good in pass coverage at this stage in his NFL career. But he is a thumper. He's a great blitzer. He's a great communicator. He's a great leader. And Stutzman can bring that entire skill set to the table as well. And you're getting him in round 6. So I think that you're getting him here as a potential future thumper and on early downs as a run defender and as a blitzer, and somebody that could be a potential leader for your defense for the long term after a year learning from Bobby Wagner in this defense, who is still kicking at his age. Then in round 7, I'm going to take a sleeper wide receiver here. One of my favorites in this class is Jimmy Horn Jr. out of Colorado. Now, obviously, these Colorado receivers definitely got outshined by Travis Hunter, and for good reason. Travis Hunter is an absolute freak. But Horn is one of those receivers that I really like because he does everything fast, right? He doesn't slow down for anything. You look at some guys, and some guys can run a really fast 40, but then, to catch the ball, they slow down. Or, when they're running their routes, they slow down. Jimmy Horn, as a true slot receiver at his size, he doesn't slow down. He runs his routes fast. He gets into his yards after the catch fast. After he catches the football, once he's going, he stays fast. That's the type of skill set that Puka Nacua brings to the table. Much bigger size than Jimmy Horn Jr. brings to the table, but I like players that are fast players and don't slow down to do the things that they need to do on a football field. Jimmy Horn Jr. is one of those guys. He can be used as kind of a chess piece, kind of similar to how you're going to use Deebo Samuel, only he's like the lighter version of Deebo Samuel, or using him on orbit motions, or using him pre-snap motion before the snap, all these different things. I think Horn is another guy that Cliff Kingsbury can have a lot of fun with in this offense, and I think he's a good route runner. I think he's good after the catch. I think that when it comes to guys that are expected to go in round 7, he might have the best chance out of anyone to be a legit starter in this league moving forward. So here's my mock 5.0 haul. 6 picks for your Washington Commanders. Nicky Manwari, the safety out of South Carolina. Princely Umanmielen, the edge rusher out of Ole Miss. Tate Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia. Coby Bryant, the corner out of Kansas. Danny Stutzman, the thumping linebacker out of Oklahoma. And then Jimmy Horn Jr., the slot wide receiver out of Colorado. So grade my mock down there in the comments section, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that will conclude this week's mock draft here on the Commanders Report. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Of course, we'll have another mock next week if you click that thumbs up icon. So if you haven't already and you want another mock next week, click that thumbs up icon. Like today's video. Until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders. One more segment still to come here, and of course, it is the mailbag. It's been almost a month since I've done a mailbag, Joey.
It has.
I've got a fever, and the only prescription is a good, hard Commanders Report mailbag.
Fun fact, they play that clip before every single Mississippi State football game, and then they all go crazy with their cowbells.
There's more cowbells.
Yeah, it's actually pretty electric.
I mean, that does sound pretty electric.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I'm not going to lie. That's one of the all-time great SNL skits right there, with Christopher Walken coming out there. I got a fever. Only prescription is more cowbell. That's good stuff, man. All right.
Getting a couple B's and A-, so they feel pretty good about it.
I mean, I think it's pretty darn good. You get players that have a chance to be contributors at multiple different positions. We don't double dip at any position. We're addressing all the needs that you have on the roster. And I feel really good about that. I really do. So we got multiple mocks on the channel, guys. And by the way, if you guys haven't been keeping up with the mocks, I'm taking new players every single week. All right. So every mock on the channel has different players on it. So if you guys want to check out all the different targets that I think the Commanders should be looking at all these different rounds, at all these different positions, check out our other mock drafts as well on the channel. Lots of good content on this channel for you guys to enjoy even after today's live show. Got enough questions, or we still want some more?
Let's see. We've got about, let me count this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we've got about 8. I think we're good enough.
All right, let's get into it here. Today's mailbag.
Let me do one thing, because we did get a super chat.
Oh, we got a super chat.
Yeah, I totally forgot to add that in here.
Joey, what are you doing, man?
I know. It was early in the segment. I forgot about it. But don't worry, we're getting it up right now. Real quick question for you, Sperry.
Yeah.
I know this year's receiver class isn't near what last year's was at the top. Would you say this class is more impressive in the middle rounds, though? Like, is there more talent? You wouldn't say that?
No. At all three levels, I think last year's was more impressive. But that doesn't mean there's not good players to be had. Wide receiver is one of those positions where every year there's good players at all rounds that you can get players at. So, do you have the superstar special guys that you had last year? I think you have a couple. But, they're not on the level of a Dunze and Marv and who am I missing here? Neighbors from last year. But you've got a lot of good players in this class. I think there's a lot of good guys that are going to go late round 1 and then round 2. The Commanders might luck their way into one of those guys at their second pick if they want to go wide receiver. So we got Merle coming in with a 2. Says, would Washington go after T.J. Watt in a trade? Merle, I'll answer this question on the mailbag today. John Masood, my man, $10, says, I got a fever, and the only prescription is more live shows with Jack, Cassie Voth, and Joey. Of course, shout out to my lovely girlfriend, Cassie Voth, who's in the chat right now. I don't think I've given her a shout out so far, so I wanted to make sure Cassie got her shout out today. So appreciate you watching, babe. Let's get into let's get into our mailbag here. I think we got enough questions, right, Joey?
We're locked and loaded, baby. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it right now. The Commanders Report mailbag is coming at you guys right now. Welcome into the Commanders Report mailbag. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and these are my favorite segments to do every single week. We haven't done one in about a month, but it's about time to get to a Commanders Report mailbag here, guys, because a lot has happened over the last month. The Laramie Tunsil trade, NFL free agency, all this different stuff. It's time that I take your questions. So before we get into them today, subscribe to the channel because we have the most interactive Washington Commanders fan community anywhere on YouTube, and it's 100% free to join our family today. We do these weekly mailbags here on the channel, and then we also have posts going out on our community tab on this channel every single day where you guys can share your take on all of the top topics surrounding the Washington Commanders this offseason. So if you want to join us for an awesome offseason this year, of course, the NFL Draft is coming up in just a couple short weeks. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now. And, of course, join us for our Commanders Report live shows every single Wednesday to get your question on these mailbags. We'll start with Merle Garrett here, $2 super chat. What's up, Merle? Says, would Washington go after T.J. Watt in a trade? The Steelers made him available, absolutely. All right, this is the same argument for why they were in on Myles Garrett, why they are still in on Trey Hendrickson, and why they would be in on T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt is a Defensive Player of the Year perennial candidate, all right? He has won one. He probably should have won multiple. This guy is an absolute technician at the position. When he is healthy, he's arguably the best defensive player in football. All right, and that's including guys like Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett and all the elite of the elites. All right, TJ is somebody that is just an absolute technician, can beat you in so many different ways, has the best cross chop in the game. So if he becomes available and the Steelers say, you know what, we're going to trade him, and by the way, that's not going to happen before the season. They're going to go into the year with TJ Watt, but maybe at the trade deadline, like let's say they get Aaron Rodgers, he stinks it up. The team stinks, they're not going to be in playoff contention, and they need to unload some of their players, and they don't want to pay T.J. Watt $40 million per season. In that case, I think that the Commanders would be very interested in getting T.J. Watt on their football team. Awesome player. It's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you at least a first-round pick, but with the Commanders already having their quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and they're trying to win right now, I don't think they'll have any issue parting with at least one first-round pick to get T.J. Watt in their building. Then we got one from your boy Football Elite. It says, in which order of positions should we take in the draft? It really does depend on how the board falls here, your boy Football Elite, but probably ideally you go like edge and safety in the first couple of rounds. Then you go wide receiver or corner in the middle rounds, and then you finish out with an inside linebacker prospect in the later rounds or something like that. But obviously, it depends on which players fall to you. It depends how the board falls. But ideally, I would probably rank the needs that way, where it's like safety, you need a strong safety, and you need a designated pass rusher along the edge for pass-heavy downs. Those are the two things you need in this draft, in my opinion. Then you would like another receiver, and you would like a corner for the future. But those are kind of lesser needs, in my opinion, than safety and edge. Then, inside linebackers one where you don't necessarily need it right now, but Bobby Wagner's not getting any younger, right? So you would like to have somebody that has some potential to kind of build around him that's not tiny Jordan McGee. I love McGee, by the way. He's great. He's gonna be a really good third down inside linebacker for pass coverage for the Commanders this year, but he's not a 3-down guy. So if you could get somebody in the later rounds that you think could fill almost like an early down thumper type of role, like a Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma, for example, a Kobe King out of Penn State, those are two guys to keep your eye on in the later rounds. I think that would probably be the sequencing that I would be looking for if I'm a Commanders fan. So tell me down there in the comments section, name a player you want the Commanders to draft this year. It could be any round. It can be a sleeper. It could be a first-round draft target, whatever you guys want. Let me know down there in the comments section. Name a player you want the Commanders to draft. This will be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time. But let me know a player in this year's draft that you want the Commanders to take. Then we got one from Jake Chrisley here. Says, who will be the true number 2 receiver? So it's going to be Deebo Samuel, but obviously he's not like a traditional number 2. That's like lining up on the outside, on the other side of Terry McLaurin. He's going to be all over the place. He'll line up outside, but he'll also line up in the slot. He'll line up in the backfield. They're going to use him on motion and all this different stuff. And he's going to be kind of the distraction piece that's going to be moving all over the place. The defense is going to be, where's Deebo? And then all of a sudden, Terry McLaurin is taking a touchdown 40 yards on your ass. So I think that Deebo is the true number 2 right now. Noah Brown certainly isn't above him on the depth chart. Luke McCaffrey certainly isn't above him on the depth chart. Now, if they get a receiver in round 1, then it might start to be a conversation, especially if Deebo starts to underperform during the season. But right now, it's no doubt about it. Deebo Samuel is the number 2 receiver of this football team. King Hypno says, who are you taking if both are available? Donovan Ezeraku or James Pierce Jr.? I'm taking James Pierce Jr. because Ezeraku has some excellent production, and I love him. All right, if the Commanders took him, I'd be okay with it. But James Pierce Jr. And also, King, it does depend on the reports I'm getting from my area scouts and the interviews I'm having with James. If I don't get a good vibe from James as a person, I'm taking Ezeraku. But if I'm fine with the person and I believe in the person that is James Pierce Jr., he's just so goddamn explosive, man. And he's got some great power at 245 pounds, which is rare for a guy that size. He's got really great speed, some great versatility. He can be probably, to start the season, your designated pass rusher, and then maybe by season's end, he's your number one every down edge rusher, and he's going to be that for the next decade. He's that special of an athlete, and then he's got multiple ways to beat you. He's a top 3 edge rusher in this class, in my opinion. Ezeraku, for as technically sound he is and as much attention to detail he has in his rushing ability, he's not the greatest athlete. I think that his ceiling is a little bit lower than James Pierce Jr. So if you're looking for a true number one, I think Pierce has more true number one upside. So if it's between Ezeraku and Pierce, I'm probably taking Pierce. Now, before we get into the rest of your questions today, you guys can get a brand new, officially licensed 2025 NFL Draft hat for your Washington Commanders. They got 2 different colorways and a bunch of different bill styles for you guys to choose from. If you like flat bills, they got flat bills. If you like snapbacks, they got flat snapbacks. If you like the curved bill, they got the curved bill. Whatever you guys want, you can go chatsports.com/2025draft to get your Commanders draft hat today. This is the official one right here. This is the one, the black design here with the burgundy brim that the draft picks are going to be wearing this year, just so you guys know. But you guys can go chatsports.com/2025draft. I personally have the off-white color one coming my way. I love the gold trimming that they have on that one with the bill. So whatever color you guys like, you guys can get it right now at chatsports.com/2025draft to get this awesome draft hat in your closet today. Jaden Sports says, if Malachi Starks and Nicky Manwari are both there and there are no good edges are available, what do you do? So pretty much saying between Nicky Manwari and Malachi Starks, which one do I like better? I think the Commanders would disagree with me. I like Malachi Starks more. Now, Starks is not the physical freak Manwari is in terms of just pure testing numbers, but Starks reminds me a lot of Brian Branch from a couple seasons ago, and honestly, he has better ball skills than Brian Branch has. They just play the game so fast, and mentally speaking, physically speaking, they got super quick feet, and they're great in coverage, great zone eyes, read the eyes of the quarterback extremely well. And then in Malachi Starks' case, he's got really rare ball skills, so he's going to get a lot of interceptions for you if he's on your football team. And he can play free safety, he can play in the box, he can play in the slot. Georgia asked their safeties to play everywhere, so Starks played everywhere. If you want him to be your starting slot corner and you want to stick Mike Samerstroh on the outside, you can certainly do that. If you want Malachi Starks to be your box safety, he can do that. If you want him to be your free safety, I think he can do that. I think he probably fits best as a true nickel defender, though, which is why I think that the Commanders would rather have Nicky Manwari because he's got more size to him. He's got more straight line speed to him. He's more of a true box safety, which is what I think Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. are looking for. So I think that they would take Manwari, even though I have the higher grade on Malachi Starks. Then we got one from Jasmine Gray. It says, I have a question for you, Jack. It is Washington Commanders will trade Trey Hendrickson or draft an edge rusher. I think they'd prefer to trade for Trey. I think that, this is a team that's trying to win now. And a true number one edge rusher and somebody that just led the league in sacks is going to be a much better bet than drafting an edge rusher even in round 1. Because, no matter how good an edge rusher is, even if you take Abdul Carter, it's at least a little bit of a projection, right? They don't have any NFL experience. With Trey Hendrickson, he just led the league in sacks last year, all right? So, and he's got great size. He can defend the run. He's got everything that you want. So I think Trey Hendrickson, even if it costs you your first-round pick this year, or maybe even a little bit more than that, and then it's going to cost you definitely in excess of over $35 million per season on his contract, I think it's worth it because you're not paying your quarterback anything, so you can afford to pay your number one edge rusher some money. And you're just not going to find anybody that's as much of a day one impact as Trey is in the draft, most likely. So I think that if you have the opportunity to get him, I absolutely would. It certainly seems like Trey and the Bengals are certainly not on great footing right now. We never know what's going to happen. They were able to pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, so maybe they find some way to get some cash to pay Trey here. We'll see how that entire situation plays out. But if I had the choice between Trey Hendrickson or drafting an edge rusher, it's not even close. I'm taking the veteran. We got one from Billy Dixon here. Says, who do you think we could get that's a speedy back? I think he's talking about running backs here. And Billy, right now, I think the Commanders actually kind of like their running back room. They've got Brian Robinson Jr., who's not speedy, but he's pretty well-rounded. Then you've got Austin Eckler, who's kind of more of a speed back that's lost a little bit of a step, but he's still a pretty darn good player, great instincts. Then you got Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Jeremy McNichols as your two kind of, backups, so to say. Could they go out and get a running back? Yeah, I would say it's more likely in the later rounds than in the earlier rounds. I'd say sometime on day 3, maybe they could get Jaden Blue out of Texas. That's certainly an option that they could look at. Or maybe Bashal Tutin out of Virginia Tech if he starts to fall. But I think it's possible, Billy. But I honestly think that they like their running back room with Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. And then I think they like Chris Rodriguez Jr. as well as a third back. So I honestly, I'm not sure they're going to take a running back this year. I'd be fine if they do, and I think it'll be in the later rounds if they do. But I honestly don't think the Commanders are that keen on taking a running back, particularly early in this year's class. So let me know down there in the comment section. What's Washington's biggest need in the NFL draft this year? Is it edge rusher? Is it safety? Is it corner? Is it receiver? Is it running back? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. For me, I don't think it's close. I think you need to find a designated pass rusher along the defensive line at the edge rusher position. Now, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really do appreciate all of the questions. Thank you guys so much for donating to the channel. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, to the Commanders. My man Billy coming in with another $1 super chat. We appreciate you, my man. Appreciate you guys. What's up?
It seems that Nick Emanwari has kind of made up the gap that was between him and Emeka Egbuka in the poll. In the beginning, Nick Emanwari...
Looks to me like Michael Williams.
Well, Michael Williams is leading by far, but at the beginning, Nick Emanwari was way down, and Emeka and Michael were very close.
So it seems like my analysis of him today has kind of tipped the scales a little bit.
I think so as well. I think that's a fair assessment.
And, Emanwari is just like a perfect Dan Quinn safety. That's listen, man, if it wasn't Dan Quinn and we weren't talking about this specific defensive structure that really wants to have that athletic freak at strong safety, I probably wouldn't be pushing for him as much as I am. And I don't think his film is great necessarily. I think Malachi Starks' film is a lot better. I think Kevin Winston Jr.'s film from 2023 is a lot better. You can even argue that Andrew Makuba out of Texas has better film.
What do you think about Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame?
And Watts is another guy that's, I think, better than Emanwari is right now. And I think Watts is on their radar, by the way. Watch out for Watts because he's kind of a bigger guy too. Not nearly as fast or as explosive as Emanwari is, but he fits the size profile that they're looking for. So I think that they're going to have a certain amount of safeties that they're cool with, and they're going to go based on the board. Safeties and edge rushers, whoever the highest on their board is, they're going to take them. Or if they get a good deal, like with the Cleveland Browns, for example, to move down, I think they'll take that too. And I think that's a smart move. I think it's actually a really smart move. If you don't have an edge rusher that you're in love with, round 1, I'd trade out of the first round. There's going to be teams, the Giants, the Browns, the Saints. There's going to be teams wanting to jump back into the first to take a quarterback because you get that extra year on the quarterback's contract in the first round. So you can really fleece some of these suckers, man. Yeah. And especially if you get Cleveland's. I almost did this today, but I didn't do it. You can double trade down because that first pick in the second round is also super valuable because there's a lot. All these teams likely have at least 1 or 2 first-round grades still available on their board. And they're like, hey, we'll pay a premium to go and get a first-round caliber guy at the top of round 2. So if you can trade down with Cleveland at 33, you're going to get some damn good offers. And by the way, remember, it's day 1 of the draft, then it stops, and you get all day on Friday, all day to take offers. And, if you want to trade down again, there's going to be people offering you some pretty darn good picks and some good deals to move down. So You could even double move down if you're the Washington Commanders and completely recoup the picks that you gave up for Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel if you really wanted to go down that route.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good idea to have. We talked about it a little bit, but you only have 5 draft picks. Like, that's not a tiny amount, but that's not a lot at all. Go ahead, move back 4 spots. If you do that deal with the Brown, 4, 5, 6 spots, you're going to be able to get somebody you like anyway.
Yeah.
If there's nobody you're absolutely in love with, make that deal, get a couple more picks, give yourself a full day to reevaluate, reassess, and get it again.
If you want to trade down again, you can.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that gives you the most options. So maybe next week's mock draft, I'll have a double trade down. How about that?
I love it.
We could see what that looks like right there.
On my Ravens mock draft that I'm going out tomorrow, I got a double trade up.
Double trade up?
Yep, in the first and in the second.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's spicy.
Got no draft picks in 2026 or what?
No, they just have 11 in 2025. I'm dealing those suckers out like candy.
I guess so. All right, man, that's going to be it for today's live show. Thank you to everybody that made it to the end of today's program. Got over 100 likes today. That's excellent. So we'll see you guys next week. And, of course, we'll have more content coming your way for the rest of the week as well. So we appreciate all of your guys' support. Until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders.